Why do I think this amicus brief is already a milestone abolitionist document? Because it has historical connections. The first connection is Mumia. Mumia Abu-Jamal is already part of our Black history, not only because of the textbook case aspect of his ordeal, not only because there are 2 streets in France named after him, not only because, as Lynn Washington puts it, he is a Black journalist behind bars who has written more than 95% articles compared to journalists outside and in America. Not only because he is one of our best Black writers and historians, but simply because he is beloved by the voiceless. The other 2 interconnections are with 2 ancestors who are rooted in our abolitionist reference. I was going to say in our abolitionist unconscious. George Floyd and how he died, Russell Maroon Schultz and how he died. George Floyd's last breath went around the world, and the worldwide protests that ensued shook the United Nations to the core. After hearing the narrative of George Floyd's brother, all 54 African states, members of the United Nations, wrote a letter of solidarity to us in our collective mourning and requested a UN investigation into law enforcement on US soil. This is a letter William Patterson, Paul Robeson, Malcolm X, and my father would have smiled upon. This is a letter, part of our history, and it influenced the final resolution that brought about the landmark July 2021 report on racial justice and equality in law enforcement by the Human Rights High Commissioner. The letter, initiated by Burkina Faso, is what I call today a true rise of Pan-African public opinion. United African public opinion. In his recent letter of thanks to these African states and their allies, Mumia writes that their attempt that I'm sorry. Are you still hearing me? Hello?
Yes, we're hearing.
Okay, Mumia writes that their attempts, quote, gave hope to those living on the brink in US ghettos and prisons, on death rows and beyond. So I believe this brief is inspired by the last breath of George Floyd and the global South's response to it. It is also inspired by the realization that Mumia's frame-up took place in a world where police narratives still held sway before Eric Garner and George Floyd. Today, in a post-George Floyd and a post-Uvalde world, police narratives are in the dock. Similarly, the police narrative surrounding Mumia will now hopefully be seen through a different, more demanding lens. The second interconnection with this brief our late beloved prisoner, Russell Maroon Schultz. In October 2021, I was invited to the UN to speak on mass incarceration. I had 3 minutes. Our prison work is about time. The prisoners do time. Their prognosis gives them no time, while the courts drag out the time of their appeals. And when we stand to speak of them, we must triage because we have no time. So that day I had to triage. Who would I speak of? Of Mumia's heart condition or Maroon? I spoke of Maroon because he was dying. But that was the day I knew we needed a Mumia health committee. And so I gathered a group of activists to work to stop the triage, unite with other political prisoners, health committees with a collective voice to interface with the community at large, with impacted families, with NGOs, and with the UN. Our message, our elderly, comorbid prisoners, primarily the political ones, are subjected to a death by incarceration that is torture. So to conclude, I believe this amicus, the result of nearly 2 years of toing, of froing with the UN Human Rights Council, is founded on the immediacy with which it was written by the working group of experts on peoples of African descent, the absence of red tape involved, the deep listening on their part, and their ability to go to the roots of the case. And it is the result of their recognition that racism is a crime against humanity that cannot be time barred, that state and court decisions should be continuously reinterrogated in the light of the slavery-old harms of systemic racism, that evidence of racial bias, even decades old, has no expiry date, and that Mumia's case is the tip of a very dangerous white supremacist iceberg. Thank you.